Good evening. You're here for yet another episode of the Tiger Town podcast. Tuesday, 17th of January, 2023, episode number 2 for the off season. I'm Zac. He's Toby. Good evening, Toby.
Hey mate, how you going?
Pretty splendid. How you going?
Yeah, not bad, not bad. Finally got my shirt on, ready to go, ready to
Happy days.
represent. So let's
Yeah.
we're a team. Let's keep it going.
Good stuff. Boys are rocking the merch on episode number 2.
It's all right, and eventually you'll be able to buy it. Hopefully, who knows?
Absolutely. Oh, well, you know, test runs, prototypes, it's all part of the game, isn't it?
Bloody oath, bloody oath.
Anything
So
changed in your world, mate, in the last 5 days since episode 1?
yeah, no, not really. Same old, same old. Kids, family, work, all the same. Yourself?
All the good stuff. Yeah. Tick, tick, tick. Same stuff. I went back to work. Actually, that did change. Went back to work yesterday, home by 1 o'clock. Yeah, it's hard.
Hard life. It's a hard
It's
life, isn't
true.
it?
Yeah, it's bloody hard, I'll tell you. But outside of that, not a lot has changed in terms of any breaking news on any big stories in regards to our club, the West Tigers.
No, no. I think we've kind of reached as much as we're going to get from an endorphin release for signings or news until the new year,
Hmm.
until the new season kicks off, I guess. I don't even know. Have we filled up the 30 yet, or is there still some spots left?
No, we're still sitting at 29. It's my understanding. So there's not a whole lot of rumors or uh, I guess, theories on bits and pieces floating around recently, as in the last fortnight or 3 weeks. Haven't had a lot of news out of the little corners of the internet in the last 2 or 3 weeks. I guess since the new year, since around Christmas time, and the Mitchell Moses stuff has gone rather quiet. So I guess what no news is good news there in a way if you're rooting for him as a signing. John Bateman, I think, still waiting on a visa, so he's not out training yet. And we've got our first trial in the matter of a handful of weeks now. So I guess that's our next endorphin release.
Yeah,
Seeing Johnny Bateman in our colours, and then looking forward to the first trial.
yeah, 100%. I think I was on Bateman's Instagram just recently, and he's still over there. Yeah, I think he had a wedding or something. So yeah, I think he's just going to pop
Yeah,
over, live his best life.
yeah. I think they did. Guilty as well of following, just seeing what he's up to. It's just a good way to track, I guess, people these days in terms of what their general movements are, and it gives you an indication if you're following a club as when they're going to come overseas to just get settled here and start training. And I did notice maybe yesterday or the day before that I think his wife or partner had posted a big shot of basically an empty house, just with him, a TV, and their young son sitting in the middle of an empty house. So they must be getting pretty close, and I'm sure it's just the formalities. I'm sure that Sheens and Benji and Robbie and the powers that be, if they had their way, would love to have had him, I guess, first day back.
Yeah, you'd think so. Apparently, his work ethic's really infectious.
Mm,
He's works very, very hard. He's very passionate about what he does. So yeah, of course, you'd think the higher ups would be pretty keen to get that across, especially the younger boys. I
yeah.
was looking at the gallery the media team put up, I think yesterday, the day before, and you could see there's a few different kind of training jerseys, but the ones that are in the different ones are most likely the New South Wales Cup team, and then, excuse me, the Jersey flag, and then obviously the first grade squad.
Mm.
They broke that up a little bit. I'm assuming it looked like Tukey was in a different one to Clemmer, but then also Will Smith was in a different one to Brooksy. So it looked like maybe they broke that up a little bit.
Oh,
Uh,
righty. Okay. Didn't notice that. Do you reckon that was based upon squads, or is it just whatever they chose to throw in for the day? I'm assuming all these guys in the extended squad get their training kit over the summer, right?
yeah. Like that's probably me looking for things. Maybe reading too much into it, but I did notice. Yeah, it was all those ones that are in the top 30 were wearing a different one than the New South Wales Cup boys. So,
Okay.
James. Is it Romanos? Is that how you pronounce it? That guy that
Uh,
in the World Cup. He's come back for us. He was in a different jersey, so he's purely New South Wales Cup. So
yeah, right. I can see what you're saying there. Yeah, okay, that's interesting. Yeah, I didn't actually notice that myself, and there's none that I can see that really bucked that trend. So that's interesting. Yeah, you might be onto something there. Old sleuthy Mick Kenai, old Sherlock McGavin over here. Hey,
just call me Toby Holmes.
you're onto it.
But
All right, is that a John Holmes reference or is that a Sherlock reference?
Valentine Holmes reference, really?
Oh, Valentine. Oh, okay. Yeah, right. You can't kick goals though, mate. I've seen you kick.
Yeah, I can't play center either, but yeah, that's fine.
True.
Um, but yeah, no, it's with all those boys still training together pretty extensively, having Bateman back with that, um, I guess the passion and the feeling that he would bring to the club. I think the quicker he gets here, the better. So
Yeah, oh, definitely. And we spoke last week about the importance of your halves and your second row striking up, particularly in defence, but attack obviously as well, striking up that connection between them, and how that can make a tremendous difference, and a tangible difference too in terms of points prevented or points even combined to score. So yeah, being such a key position player, I know that um, getting in and making sure that he's familiar with the structures and even just the unspokenables, I guess you could say, which is just reading the subtleties of his halves partners and the players around him and all that sort of stuff as well. I'm saying Bateman in particular because he's not currently there, but yeah, obviously the ability of them to strike up those unconscious readings of the players around them is going to be important too.
yeah, 100%, 100%. So, but yeah, there's not really too much exciting news coming out. So what last week we talked about the forwards and the signings pretty
Hmm.
extensively. So I think we mentioned we were going to talk about the backs this week and where we think if it's an improvement, if if we can actually fire this year, because there were moments last year where we're having people playing in positions that, to be honest, like you could probably pull any other team or New South Wales Cup team bar us a center or a winger out of there and they'd play better. It was like that was their first time playing in that position. It was a bit frustrating to see. Um, but yeah, I guess that's what we'll focus on today or tonight. And like it'll be interesting to see your thoughts on the matter because I know you dive a little bit deeper than I do in terms of, well, you've got a better feel for the backs than I do. So I guess it would be interesting to get your point of view.
Um, we might start with the end first and then go off there just by simply saying that you're 1 to 5. I mean, we spoke last week about how 6 and 7 at this stage probably pick themselves, barring Laurie getting a run at 6 and Dwayne in the centres. I think everybody would agree that the most likely scenario would be Brooks at 7 and Dwayne at 6. But who's your 1 to 5 then? Um, I guess not in terms of, or maybe both. So who would you pick, and who do you think will be come round one?
Well, I think we discussed our 1 to 17 last week. So if I remember correctly, I'll probably change now that I'm thinking off the top of my head, but I think
Well, you're a week older, a week wiser, maybe a week stupider, depending on the situation.
yeah, probably stupider to be honest.
Hmm.
Um, I think I had Laurie at fullback, and I don't think that'll change. My wingers were Mamalo, or did I have Staines? No, they have Mamala and Noffa. And then my center pairing is Naden and Talau. So that's what I would want.
Yeah.
I don't know how different it's going to be, but something tells me that Staines will get a push over Mamalo. And the thing that'll frustrate me if it happens is Toa will be picked over Talau.
Who's that? Sorry,
Stafford Dor.
Toa.
I think
Yeah, okay.
he'll get picked over Talau. That's so. I think what it will be Staines, Noffa, Dor, Naden, Noffa. Did I
Yeah,
say
okay.
Staines? One of the two.
Yeah, okay.
What about yourself?
Um, yeah, I tended to think that Dane Laurie will get the first job at fullback, which I'm not locked myself, and I guess we'll talk a little bit about the burden of choice. Not that the choices are A plus, they're not Fs, but they're not A plus, but we do have a burden of choice, which does make it difficult. So I guess what I think will happen is I think that they will play. I don't see Staines making it in terms of what I think will go at least round one. I think we'll see Laurie at one, Nofaluma and Mamalo on the wings, and then, as you said, Talau and Naden in the centres. Excuse me. But what I was thinking a little bit about today, and I'm not 100% sold on this idea because I know it's got a few shortcomings, but I would actually like to see possibly I'm sitting on the fence, but possibly Staines at one with Laurie playing 5'8", pushing Dwayne to the centres with Naden, and then having Mamalo and Nofaluma on the wings. I think Mamalo and Nofaluma, for the most part, are generally locks. Not position lock, but they are locks on the wing. You can lock them
Hey,
in.
Mamalo could play lock, to be honest.
Yeah, he could do. Yeah, he could play prop. But I only say that maybe for the first third of the season. I think they're just being the incumbents and the experienced campaigners that they are. I don't at the beginning of the season see them being unseated there. The reason that I suggested Staines at fullback and Laurie at 6, Dwayne at 4, is not so much that I'm 100% sold that it's the best option, but I just think it's one of the best ways to get them all in this side.
Mm.
I believe that Dwayne is a better centre than 5'8". I don't think I'm alone there. There's certainly a lot of people that don't agree with that statement, but and I don't necessarily believe that Laurie is a better 6 than Dwayne per se. However, I think it's one of the better ways to get those three players, being Staines, Laurie, and Dwayne, all in the same back line, if we
Yeah.
put it that way, which provides us with more attacking options and more attacking threats. And obviously, we get to see what Staines can do with ball in hand, and that's a very important position, fullback these days, with what they can do in creating opportunities, not just finishing like a winger would. But I think I'm a big fan of the adage of pick your best players and find the positions for them later. And that was a cliche or an adage or an idiom. Was it Gibson, Jack Gibson, that said that? One of those, or Bob Fulton, one of the all timers, basically said that statement, and I'm a big believer in that as well. I think New South Wales does that quite well when they pick 4 or 5 fullbacks every single year and find a way to fit them in. So, obviously we don't have that same caliber of player, but that's at the moment, at this current junction, Tuesday night, the 17th of January, that's where I'm at, but it could change tomorrow.
Fair. No, that's fair. And it does sound exciting when you think about the attacking threat that could come from anywhere on the park with the forward pack setting the platform. It's just, what's the chances of it happening?
Yeah, I don't know. I know they've been doing a lot of training of that
Yeah, I know
during
that
the off season.
Laurie's been training a bit of 5'8", but I think that's
And
just
there's a couple of whispers around the traps as well, directly from some of the players' mouths, not in the common media, obviously, but just through channels, not my channels, but through others' channels. That scenario is a fair chance. At the very least, it's going to get a decent run in the trials to see if it works. So they must be in some way thinking about that, and I can understand why. Obviously, there's pitfalls that come with that too.
yeah, no, 100%. How far are we from the first trial? Like 3 weeks, I think. February 9th, isn't it?
Is it February 9th? Let's have a look.
I think so. I think it's against the
I know
Warriors at Mount Smart. So it'll be interesting. Like, just obviously the
yeah,
first trial,
Thursday.
yeah,
Yeah, you're right. Thursday, February 9th.
yeah. There's the first trial, like for as long as I can remember, has always just been the second strings getting the crack to prove their worth. And then the final trial is when the possibly full strength squad gets a little bit of a run together to see how they fight. So it'll be interesting to see how it fares. I'm just keen to see the boys back on the park, and that's something I didn't think I'd say towards the back end of last year. This year, I thought I'd be like another year of misery, another year of blah. But yeah, we mentioned it last week. There's just there's something in the air, and it feels different. Like I mentioned last week, I have optimism every single year, but it's just something feels different this year. And is it the signings? Is it Sheen's being back? Is it Benji having more of a hands-on approach? Because you watch the videos of the training, and he runs the plays with them. Like he sits there and he's dropping people under. He's doing
They
block
were
play.
doing they were doing wrestling today at the Center of Excellence. I can see him on delay on stream. It'll come back in a sec. And yeah, some of the footage was him right there front and center doing all the wrestling.
Yeah. Yeah, I think in one way or another he'll never hang up the boots completely. He'll always want to get in there and have a bit of a run. Like Bennett used to still run laps with the boys when he was in his 70. He's 70 now. When he was in his 60s, he might even still be doing it at the Dolphins. Who knows?
Yeah, so they should.
Yeah, some people just will never really give it up. So
yeah, I know as a player, I really appreciated that when the coaches got in there and did what they needed to do. Some did, some didn't, but I always appreciated when they did.
Yeah, I don't know if I ever really had a coach that got in, did the nitty gritty with us, unless it was a player coach.
Yeah, captain coaches love doing it.
But yeah, that's actually not a bad segue. I was thinking, a bit of a off topic because you talked about the center of excellence. What are your thoughts? Like everyone's seen all the videos, everyone's seen all the the tours and the walkthroughs and everything like that. What's your initial thoughts of it?
Oh, mate, it's phenomenal.
Yeah.
It's fantastic, and obviously the blokes that are there living it every day and benefiting from it are the ones that I guess get to experience and benefit most from it as on a day-to-day basis. But even just seeing the way that the content they're able to create initially in this first half of their first preseason there is wonderful too. And obviously they're putting a bit of money into their videography and all that sort of stuff, and that bleeds into content, and that allows us to see I guess different sides of what the boys are doing, and the facilities themselves then allow those things to take place. Like I said, we saw some examples of them doing some wrestling training on the mats because they got special jiu-jitsu or wrestling mats there, and we were able to see an insight into bits and pieces of that, and we can see shots from the beautiful weight room. We can see all sorts of bits and pieces. I'm sure we'll get to experience a lot more of that as fans over the coming years, and we get more of a look into the inner sanctum in there. And being such a good facility, obviously, it makes it all nicer and prettier and seem much more professional, I guess, as well. But yeah, I mean, how could you be disappointed with that?
Better than getting changed in container ships out the front of Concord.
Yeah. Yeah, and seeing training footage that doesn't have dirt mounds and scaffolding in the background is nice, and
yeah,
I'm sure they must be enjoying it too. And one thing I've noticed as well, they've spoken a lot about the pathway stuff, but they're bringing. I've already seen, whether it's through the galleries they're putting up or some of their video work through Instagram or their socials. They're bringing all these junior groups through and having training sessions and training days with players and all that sort of stuff, but they're bringing them to the center of excellence. So they're giving them a taste of what it's like to be, in this sort of venue and what that means as a professional rugby league player.
100%, 100%. And I'm pretty keen. I think I'm going to go down for the Leichhardt game against Cowboys. I'll have a fresh bubs and take them to see their first Tigers game at a Leichhardt Oval. But I'm pretty keen to make a bit of a weekend out of it and go a bit of a wander around the outside of the center of excellence. So yeah, pretty good.
Yeah, and I'm sure they got times and things where it is open to the public too. So yeah, that might be something. That'd be pretty cool to be able to go down there and see. And whether I decide to make a dash down there with you, or at a later date, I'm sure it'd be something that'd be pretty cool to see the inside for sure.
100%, 100%.
It's the sort of thing where it's nice and it's a positive and all that sort of stuff, but obviously the cliche and the reality is that it directly won't change results on the field. Everything else that comes with it, obviously, are the important things, but it can't hurt.
No.
If you're playing in unwashed jerseys, it doesn't make your tackles any worse, but it's nice to play in fresh ones that were washed during the week by mum. So, it makes a big difference.
It'll also be a pretty good carrot to attract some high quality players that are, either just starting out or ready to, be part of something or be part of a team that has that kind of a quality facility. So,
yeah, definitely. And with that comes the amount of money they're spending within the football department as well. So I had an interview with Peter Musa yesterday or the day before, I think, where they're actually going through his role. Obviously, the frozen again there, but I think the audio is still running. Going through his new role as the head of performance, where he was obviously the team physiotherapist, working almost exclusively in isolation. I think maybe with a small team from around 2011 to 2019, I think. So he's there for a decent chunk of time. But now he's back in a bigger capacity, and they've created and been able to spend more in that space in high performance. And so they have a bigger team. They have more exercise physiologists, more physios, more sports scientists to be able to add to what they can do to these players and take them all to the next level as well. So it's not just pretty lights and pretty weights and a colourful green field. That there's some decent spending going on in conjunction with that as the headquarters, I guess.
Yeah. No, definitely. So, well, it'd be exciting to have a bit of a tour and see what it's like, and maybe even get a haircut. Who knows?
You need one.
Yeah, no, it's getting.
What are you? About half a millimeter there growth already.
Maybe 3/4.
It's a little bit tardy, mate.
Yeah, needs a shave. All right, we'll segue back and we'll just keep talking about the backs. And I guess, do you feel that there is settled, or do you think we're still missing a key piece there?
Oh no, we're definitely missing some class. I think across the board there are upgrades in the league. Undoubtedly, there are upgrades in the league. So we don't have a top 3 player in any of those positions. We don't have a top 5 player in any of those positions. So that there speaks to how there's upgrades possible. Look, Nofaluma is solid and serviceable. Mamalo, has his good points. Bretton Aiden is solid and strong, and he's pretty quick. He's a decent first grader. Dwayne, same thing. He can be attacking threat. A couple of defensive deficiencies if he plays there. Tommy Taleo, yeah, he's come with a fair bit of promise, but he hasn't played in 18 months, and we don't know where he stands. Dane Laurie has been okay at fullback, a lot of shortcomings, some improvement. Charlie Stone's largely untested. So, I think that the back line itself, whilst it is first grade standard in that I think it's serviceable, I think it's a flip of a coin if that back line can get you into the 8 at their best. I think they can, but it's close at their best. They all have to play well, let alone top 4 or premiership. That's not a premiership winning back line. I don't think that's overly contentious to say. But one of the strengths that we do have, in my opinion, is the fact that we do have depth. The depth is of the same level, but I think we've got maybe 10 or 12 okay/decent first grade backline players available to us. So Tommy Talia didn't make that backline that I listed. Neither did Stafford Toa, neither did Asuka Poa. You've got Felidi, who's coming up, who's not too far away. You've got Junior Tupa, who's played on the wing and did pretty well as a young fella. And I'm probably missing a couple. There's another 5 that didn't make the little squad that I put up before. So we do have depth. It's just that we lack class. What do you think?
I'm right there with you. I think we're definitely missing that. There's something. There's that bit of shine that we need. Someone that you are confident that they'll, give us something or give us their all every single game, and that you'll never have to worry about them not just doing their job, but doing something that can turn a game.
Game breaker.
We used to have, back in 2016, it was the same play every time was pass to Tedesco and hope he did something. And every third play he'd do something, whether it was a break, pass it off to make an extra 20 meters or whatever he did. He always did something. But yeah, I think
game breaker.
It's
a game breaker.
I think I mentioned this last week. Look, I am a fan of Laurie, and I think he definitely had second year syndrome last year, but I think towards the back end of the year, he started to find his form again, and his support play got improved pretty dramatically towards the end of it. So I think we're okay to an extent at fullback. My concern is a class center. I think that if we had someone that, like, if we had to pick right now, if you had to get someone for a position because you believe that is the position that's lacking the most, it is a class center. And that for me is a little bit of a concern with what we have. Not a concern, so to speak, but I'm not confident that if you had to stack up our center pairing against the majority of others, I think we wouldn't make the top 10. If you think about it.
Oh, no, but it's the same across the board in many ways, I think, isn't it? So center's your position?
Center is the position I think that if we had a gun to our heads and we had to pick someone right now to fix the team, to help fix the team, we'd get a gun center.
Okay.
How about you?
Well, in terms of the back line, for me, it's fullback.
You still don't think that Laurie's got up to that standard?
No, if I'm investing 800 to 1.1 in a position in the back line, other than halves are a different discussion. It's a fullback for sure. And
I'm saying not so much. Like, obviously fullback would be what I'd want to invest in because fullback is such a important role. But what I'm saying is, right now, if someone had a gun to your head and they said you can have whoever you want to fix a specific issue in your game, where would that be? And do you still think that?
Do you mean in the 17 or just in the back line we're talking?
Do you still think that's fullback? Do you still think that?
Sorry, did you say back line? I missed you.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, back line. I still think it's for me it's fullback because I think that between Naden, Talau, and Dwayne, I think there's some pretty decent centre pairings there. Underrated. I agree with you. I don't think they're top 10 pairing. But on their day they can be. So I think Naden, Talau, if he meets a bit of potential coming back, certainly Dwayne on a good day can really do some damage. So yes, there's upgrades there, in my opinion, needed in centre, or it would be very nice to have some upgrades in centre. But the lack of superstars in the centres for me, I played a lot of centre, and as much as it's a really important position, I think that serviceable centres can get you a lot further in my opinion, get you a lot further in the competition than only having a serviceable fullback. You can only have one fullback, but a superstar fullback versus a superstar centre will have a greater impact on the success of the team in a number of facets. And I think you can somewhat paper over the cracks of your centre stocks with a couple of decent ones as opposed to complete superstars. That's my opinion. Parramatta made the grand final last year with Tom Opacek and Will Penasini. And I
Yeah.
think Wanga Blake playing at certain points. You
Yeah.
know, Penasini's pretty decent young player, but he made a few mistakes, and Opacek serviceable at best, and Wanga Blake, well, he's Wanga Blake. So I think you can find statistics to back up anything, but
Yeah.
that's where I fall on that. Yeah,
No, that's fair. It was
yeah,
it's like, yeah, I was thinking about that the other day, and um just thinking about all those, the centers that can make or break a game. Like it's different, it's a different game than it was, late 2000s. But you think about, when Dragons won the grand final, they had, you think about the center pairing they had there, probably the best center pairing easily of the noughties in Matt Cooper and Gaznia.
mm.
I can't even remember who the fullback was. Was it Hornby? I think he was 7. I don't even know I can't even remember who the fullback was.
Nightingale played some fullback.
There's
Yeah,
your
but I agree. Yeah, most definitely. But I think it was a little bit of a different game back then, and those guys were elite. Like they were a hell of a combo. Um, I struggle to name too many centers these days that I would call gun centers because a lot of the gun centers that I feel are gun centers are playing different positions. So I'm thinking Jack Whiten, Latrell Mitchell, Tommy Turbo when he plays Origin.
yeah.
Um, these types of players are playing 5'8" fullback because of the money. And so they're not playing where I think they probably are traditionally. And if that was the case, then maybe the game would be more akin to that in a lot of other ways. But it's almost like the gloss is off center as a position, which is not news to anybody.
Yeah.
And as a result, your better centers that you can mention maybe are like Jesse Ramian or Bradman Best or um, Stephen Crichton. Like I struggled to name 10 gun centers in the whole competition.
Yeah, that's fair. And then you've also got, another kind of probably a player that's playing out of position in Talakai. Talakai's,
Mm.
had a blinder quite a few games last year, but he's back row.
Yeah. And he also started the season really well. And then he was okay for the rest of the year, but he never repeated what he did in those couple of games he caught fire. So,
Game against Manly.
yeah, I mean, um, yeah, it's whether it's the game has changed, whether the players who would traditionally have played that role, like I said, exploring other avenues in terms of the positions they want to play. I don't know. And Dwayne's probably a prime example of that. If he was happy playing centre, happy with the paycheck a centre earns, um, and just worked on his defence just a wee bit, then he's a gun. Like he's a lock for me. He's a not lock position. He could play lock, but um, I'd lock him into the centre position. I'd sign him in there for 5 years. If he fixes his defence, I'd play Dwayne for the next 5 years at centre for the Tigers. I really think he's that good. But
Yeah, but he doesn't
yeah,
want to play center. He wants to play 5'8".
yeah,
So,
he does. But we also offered Cameron Munster over $1 million, and we offered Mitchell Moses over $1 million to play in the halves, with Brooksy playing 5'8". So obviously the club doesn't necessarily agree with it, and that's his call. We spoke about that a bit last year, I think. But
yeah, I think so. But yeah, that's an interesting topic too. Like we've got a number of players, especially in the spine, that are coming off contract this year, and there's no talks of re-signing them just yet. Well, Dwayne was a bit different. Like I did read something a couple of days ago that they're going to start ramp up negotiations in the next couple of weeks, months for Dwayne, but it's nowhere near the price packet he apparently wants. I still don't believe he's come out and said that he wants that. I think when all that news broke, he was splitting with his management, and they probably sat there and just you know threw all their toys out of the cot and
well,
leaked.
there's a little bit of inside word that was actually exactly what happened. So you might be on the money there, but Yeah, that's an interesting point because neither Brooks nor Dwayne are signed beyond this year. Neither of our fullback options, Dane Laurie or Charlie Staines, are signed beyond this year. So realistically, we've only got two fullback options in the club. We've only got two half options in the club.
Tommy Talau's not signed beyond this year. He was in my centre pairing. Naden's
Yeah,
re-signed,
but
I think.
yeah, Nathan re-signed. He's re-signed to 2026 or something. They re-signed him again last year. But yeah, that's interesting because we're already short in depth on halves, and both of them are signed beyond this year, and then our two, as I said, two fullback options are only here for this year. So it's not as if these types of guys are getting offers galore knocking down the door. Otherwise, the club would be working harder to secure them, you would think. But as it stands, currently next year, we've got no halves signed and we've got no fullback. So that you want to talk about a glaring problem for 2024, which obviously is something they're working on and it will be remedied. But it's very rare, in my opinion, that you don't have a half or a fullback signed 12 months out from the next season.
Not only that, I was just going through um, the team on at the West Tiger site, and they literally have Dwayne and Brooks as the only listed halves in the team.
Mm. Mm.
Not
Yeah.
even what's you know Will Smith is there, but he's listed as a fullback.
He's also a training trial, so he's not in the top 30, so he can't play unless he's signed on until round 10.
If he's
So
on, if he is on a training trial, why is he on the website, the site? That's the thing that I don't know if he's on a training trial.
no, he is.
Why
Yeah,
would he?
he's on a train. He's definitely on a training trial.
Well, he got named in the New South Wales Knock On Cup, so
Yeah, so he's probably signed onto that. So he's had training trial over the summer, and they've probably signed him onto a New South Wales Cup contract. And then obviously, saying to him that training trial will continue through the season, and if you perform well, then you might earn a spot in the top squad. That's what they commonly do.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I can't unless there's names here that I have no idea because I have no idea some of these names. Um, I can't see any backups at all. Like I literally cannot see any backup halves, and that's concerning. Speaking of this too, sorry, just going because on the webs on the you mentioned it just before, so I was having a look at it before. On the West Tigers website, they have released the pathway squads.
yeah,
So I was just looking at that before, and it's got coaches, assistant coaches, etc. I thought Kamali was named the NRLW coach, or am I looking at the different? Oh, this is New South Wales Women's Premiership. Yeah, different one.
yeah. The women's comp doesn't start till later in the year.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there you go. But yeah, sorry, off topic.
that's right.
Yeah, that is concerning. That if something happens, um, to our halves, like let's say for instance, it goes the way that you hope it would go, and Laurie moves to um Laurie moves to the 5/8, Dwayne moves to the centers. If we lose those two playing at the same time, who do we have left? If we lose Brooks, who do we have? We have no one.
Yeah,
It's really
yeah. Yeah, it's a big concern, and barely a year goes by where you don't have an injury of some description in the spine, even if it's for a couple of weeks here or there. So I'm sure they've got systems in place to try to mitigate that, but they have what they have, and there's been some interesting promotions over the offseason, the back end of last year, in terms of people that were promoted into the main squad, which raised a few eyebrows considering it didn't address any of the shortages. And I'm referring to people like Tumuth and Brendan Mansfield and players like this that are yet to debut, but they bumped them up to the top 30 and they're all forwards. So, yeah, look, I'm sure they've got their systems in and their backups in place. Obviously, Jake Simpkin can play in a position or two. Rua can play in a position or two, but particularly those are probably lock and hookers, the pair of those two boys. And it may be the case that sooner rather than later, Will Smith might have to be bumped up to try to cover a position. I guess having Laurie there as a backup half is first and foremost something that they're going to be looking at. So I dare say, even as we're talking about it, in contrast to what I said earlier, he may have done all that training there so that he is ready to step into a half role if that is the case. If Brooksy gets injured, I don't know who plays halfback. Probably
Yeah.
Adam Dewey, the world's biggest halfback, and he probably will have to. And then you'd have Laurie come in and you'd have Staines go back to fullback. So I think it's more a case of this year in particular shuffling the decks. And I mean, you can't have it all. We won the wooden spoon by 7 lengths last year in many ways, and the squad clearly was one of the major drivers of that. And in order to be able to have the revolutionary squad overhaul that we've had this year, which by all accounts and our opinion is quite quite revolutionary. It's amazing. We've been really impressed by what we've been able to do. You're going to, in the interim, have a few shortcomings. That's bound to happen. We can't improve our second. We've just not to dish up last week, but we've added international level props, elite. We've added an elite prop. We've added 2 international level, and I mean really elite second rowers, and we've added the incumbent New South Wales hooker. You can't overhaul your forward pack and fix your halves and add class to your back line and get a marquee fullback all in the one off season. So yeah, look, I guess that's part of the unspoken process when it comes to overhauling rosters. Even when you do a really good job, you're going to have shortcomings. If you look at the Bulldogs last year, for all their astute signings that they'd made, and then even leading into this year, they're still bereft of halves. They still had Averillo playing at fullback, so they didn't have a fullback really. They were really struggling in their halves, not happy with Kyle Flanagan and a few other bits and pieces as well. So, and Jeremy Marshall Kingmaker fair fist of hooker last year, but prior to him having probably his best season, they didn't have a hooker either. So, Canterbury themselves have seen that firsthand, is that in the process of rebuilding a roster, when you spend money in certain areas, particularly like terrible rosters, 1 to 17, trash, 1 to 30, mostly trash. That sort of stuff is going to take time.
Yeah, that's fair. I was just looking at off-contract halves too that we might be able to snare as a backup, and it's no one.
No.
There's no one. Like,
no, it's a desert out there.
Adam Clone, but I don't think the Knights are letting Adam Clone.
But is Adam Clune really? And this is not you, but I'm saying, like, in terms of what's available, is Adam Clune an upgrade on Brooks? Is Adam Clune an upgrade on Dwayne?
Oh no,
is Adam Clune
is
Adam Clune an upgrade on Jock Madden? If that was the situation, why not re-sign Jock Madden again for another year as a backup? Hindsight's 2020, but yeah, it'll be interesting. Let's just hope we don't get any injuries in the halves, eh?
Well, now that you said that, it's going to happen. So
I'm touching wood, mate. I got a wooden desk right here, and I got my handprints all over it.
Yeah.
Just back to, we've taken a long little roundabout, but I wanted to go back to what we're talking about with the backs before. So we named our 1 to 5, and we both agree that there's some shortcomings there. I think we both want to see improvements across that 1 to 5, but that will take time. You'd love to see a centre. I'd love to see a fullback. But reality is that's what we've got. But the depth is pretty interesting. So having the likes of those players that I named before, and I was just having a quick little flick through the squad at large, and yeah, there's some other players in there that haven't been mentioned. So Tristan Riley, centre that came from rugby, struggled a little bit in New South Wales Cup last year, but he's top 30. He's an option. Tommy Talau, Stafford Toa, Junior Tupou, Josh Falidi, who is listed on the website, but I don't think he's top 30 this year, but I might be wrong. He may well be. Who else have we got there? Asu Kapoa. Okay, so, these are all players that we don't think will be in our starting side come round 1. So the ability to have players there at the ready to back up, and players that can play multiple positions, mind you. You know, Kapoa, Toa, Junior Tupou, they can all play centre and wing. Toa at a pinch played fullback last year, and whilst he didn't set the world on fire, and you know, he is an option, put it that way. You know, if we do happen to lose a couple of fullback options, Toa is an option. He can play fullback. He has played fullback. It's not going to be obviously anything we wish for, but if we're in that situation where we are down several key players, you take what you can get. And the fact that we would be able to call on a player with first grade experience, plenty of it, and someone who's played fullback at our club before, it's not the end of the world. So depth is something we haven't had for a little while, but it's good to see that.
Yeah, definitely. It's a good point you say there. Like, yes, Toa didn't set the world on fire, and I'm still someone that gets sidestepped by Daly Charlie Evans just annoys me. Blake doesn't have a very. Let's just say if he does a sidestep, you see it 3 minutes before he does it. That frustrates me. But yeah, if we need him, he's there in a pinch. And yeah, that gives you a little bit of not confidence, but I guess security to a standpoint. Like you're a bit more reassured that if something happens, that we're not sitting there scraping the bottom of the barrel and putting safe after fullback. But I don't know. It's still, yeah, there's something missing there, and it's, I can't see us being a top 4 team until something there changes. And like I said, maybe it is fullback. I still think it's someone that, imagine having a gun center outside, John Bateman, who can create something out of nothing, and then you just have a gun center who creates something out of nothing. Like, that's just devastating, that side. Like, yeah, I don't know. No, that's just me anyway.
What sort of player could you see filling that role at the Tigers? Now, it could be somebody that's signed, but someone who realistically, if they came up in the next, say, 18 months, 2 years for sale, and, we've got cap space, that you could realistically or possibly see as an option there that would satisfy that gun center requirement that you're thinking about.
Oh, if I could wish for anyone, get Tony Staggs for me.
Okay. Yep. Yep.
He's just so powerful. He's like he's a lot shorter than him, but you think about how hard you could see it used to take people to tackle Greg Inglis. I see the same with Staggs. Like that try that he scored, I think it was last year, where he literally threw 3 people off him, grabbed, threw them off him, and like he's got legs the size of tree trunks. He just, yeah. If I could have anyone from a center position, it'd be him. I don't think he's off contract until 2025, but so that's a long shot. Yeah, apart from that, the only other one would be Joey Manu, but apparently he's, there's talks of him going into, he's been training at lock, apparently, just to get his hands on the ball a little bit more in attack. But I think Kiri's up, his contract's up next year, and there's word that it's not going to be re-signed, and they're going to put Manu at 5'8" or
with Walker.
But there's also talks that, I think Teddy's management was trying to get just a final 2-year deal for him to finish up at the Roosters, dickhead. And then Manu might go to fullback, but then they've also got Suwali, so that's an interesting one. Like, thinking about fullback, would you throw the house at Suwali? No.
He's Sonny Bill Williams Mark II for me. He's a mercenary. I want someone who is going to at least buy into the club a little bit, and I don't see him ever doing that with a club he's had no affiliation with. The Roosters now, because they gave him a chance, paid him what he wanted early, he might feel some sort of loyalty to them, but any other club, that was to sign him from here on in, it's only for money, obviously. And as soon as that offer goes away, or as soon as the club falls on hard times, or as soon as the money's not quite there to the same degree, he'll just fly the coot and go somewhere else. And if I'm going to invest in a player, it's going to have to be someone who I could see buying into the club and sticking around longer term. So I don't see that in him. As much as he's a prodigious talent and he's unbelievable, I don't see that in him for our club. So, yeah, but probably not the best fit for that. And that might just be a chip on my shoulder. I just don't like players like that.
That's fair. That's fair.
Mm.
I personally would. I think that, he's still very young, and, while you say he's a mercenary for hire and all that jazz, I think that the thing that Penrith showed is that if you can get a very close group together, everyone wants to stay. Like, there's talk. Oh, news broke yesterday that Crichton's leaving Penrith. That's like, you think about the squad that they have. That is like 1 out of 13 that would probably, like, he was more than likely to leave because he wants to play a different position. But you get a close group like that, no matter how young you are. Well, actually, it's probably better the younger you are, because you want to stay and you want to feel comfortable. And he's still quite young, so if you can sort of get him into the group, you get Benji get him under Benji's wing, get that bravado that Benji, exudes, and that could waiver him to stick around, especially if Benji's taking over in 2025. So,
yeah,
I'd still throw the
yeah,
house.
it's a possibility for sure. If they were able to negotiate a 5-year deal with no player options, and paying him, decent money, 1.2 or something, then yeah, I'd be keen at that rate. But if it was a 2-year deal and then player option one, and then another year, and then player option, and another year, and then a mutual option, and all these bits and pieces that there's been talk of with him in the past, and that type of player, then nah, I'm out. Too hard. But
Kind
if
of
he
like,
wants to sign up to a 5-year deal worth $6-7 million, then yeah,
so
even 1.5.
you wouldn't give him a Dylan Brown deal.
I don't know the details of that. I don't know what's going on there, but yeah, something's. Yeah.
Alex, 4 years, and then every year after that is a player. Um, a player.
Well, yeah, it was never actually. You might have seen it, but I read a few articles about it, and they never actually outlined exactly how that would work. And some of the journalists actually said we're not exactly sure how it works, but it's something like that. So, yeah, I'm sure in some ways it would make sense, but I'm sure we'll find out exactly what that contract looks like in time. But yeah, on the surface, it seems rather silly for sure.
Oh yeah, 100%, 100%.
So one thing I just wanted to go through is that we mentioned briefly earlier that this week, or even today, today, on westtigers.com.au, they released an article about their Pathways program. So they've finalised their squads for New South Wales Cup. Jersey Flegg, SG Ball. They haven't mentioned Harold Matts, or have they? I can't recall.
Down the bottom.
Okay, the two girls competitions. So New South Wales competition, New South Wales Cup competition, which is the Harvey Norman Women's Premiership, which is the precursor to the WNRL, which happens later in the season, and also Tarsha Gale, which is their under 19s. So the all I wanted to basically go through and just mention a couple of names that I think we might have to keep a bit of an eye out for listeners who may or may not be familiar with this sort of stuff. And I don't have a tremendous amount of information on all these guys, but there's just a few names I've heard a bit about and seen a little bit of. So if we go straight down to, and you have to excuse me if you're watching on stream, because I'm just going through on my phone through the list. That's why I'm looking down, save, doing too much on the computer in front of me. But the New South Wales list, we've got Jack Boyling, who's an interesting proposition, second row from memory. May have come out of the Sharks. Don't quote me on that, but came with a little bit of mongrel, and there was a few people had a few raps on him. Sharks or Dragons, one of the two, I think, but hasn't done a whole lot just yet. But yeah, came with some good raps. You got Jordan Hill, who is a winger, and Jordan is a fair athlete. I think he went away for a little while and we managed to get him back. I think he's got fair reps, whether he's a winger, come centre, come fullback, quite quick. Maybe a young Indigenous fella, but don't quote me on that. But yeah, Jordan Hill's a name to look out for. Ben Houston or Houston came over from Randwick Rugby just in the off season, and he's one that raising a few eyebrows. Apparently, he's been training the house down over the summer. Now it's just New South Wales Cup at this stage, but he's one to keep a bit of an eye out for. We have Asatasi James, who's a prop, pretty bullocking type of prop, and looked reasonably good in New South Wales Cup. I can't speak to his motor though, but definitely probably more of that high impact type player. Had elements of Fanua Pole about him, but we know Pole's got quite that good motor and work ethic, gets through quite a lot of work. I can't speak to that, but not a bad little proposition. That's hard to say. Jimmy Nutlick's on that list there. So Jimmy Nutlick, for anybody who watched the World Cup, played for PNG on the wing, scored a pretty sensational 40 or 50 metre solo try, and a fairly exciting prospect, one of the quicker blokes in the club from what we've been told. And quite an athlete as well. So Jimmy Nutlick is one to keep an eye on. As I scroll down there through, Liam Scolari is an up-and-coming junior who did his ACL and missed the entirety of last season. He may have done it early last year, maybe in the preseason, similar to Sean Bloor, but I may be wrong there. But he missed last season. Pretty developed young fella, so I think he's about 19 or 20, Liam, now. But he tenacious. You could think of early Kotrick, maybe similar player, or a Mansour type of player. I've only seen bits and pieces, but Liam Scolari comes pretty highly touted as well there. Now, you happy for me, Toby, just to keep going through another couple of names there?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, well, I'm
Okay.
just looking at him as well, and it's more so the SG guys. It's going through. There's been a couple of articles on the Daily Telegraph wrapping our future, because obviously Sheens comes out and said he's pretty excited about what the future holds.
He's hasn't shied away from saying that, has he?
No, so just going through that. And what was that? Because you obviously know the juniors a lot more than I do. There was that young kid from Manly that came over.
Josh Felitti.
I can't see his name anywhere.
Yeah, Felitti he may have even been promoted to full squad, top 30, which is why he appears in that players list. I might be wrong there. I have a feeling he is in the flag side. Let's just see if we scroll down here through. Okay. Yeah, I can't see him in the flag side either, but he's a flag age, so he's still only 19, or he's still only 18 for Liddy. But he may have been promoted to top 30. I'm not 100% sure on that, but he's definitely there or thereabouts. So speaking of flag, I've mentioned last week and maybe even last year, Jereen Buller, up and coming fullback come winger. Hell of an athlete from what we've seen, what we've been told. Definitely one to keep an eye out on this year. I don't think he's first grade yet, and I think there's quite a few ahead of him, but I think he'll start to put his hand up a little bit more and probably push into New South Wales Cup a little bit more. As I go down through this flag list, there is Trey Penny. He's a centre out of, I think he may have been Keebra, Trey Penny, or even up Wavell, possibly. But yeah, he's a centre. Mikey Tanous played for Lebanon in the World Cup. A young fella as well, hooker, come half. Little tenacious little bloke. He's had quite a few raps for a number of seasons. I think he's been trumped already by Talon Silva underneath him, unfortunately. But for a little while, he looked like he was going to be someone to come through and be a decent hooker prospect as well. So quite a few. And there's actually a fair few names in there that maybe have come up from SG Ball as well, because there's quite a few in there that I don't yet recognise. So Zane Kemro is a half in there.
So I found him there.
Sorry, say again.
I found Josh Felitti, so he's
You didn't find him?
SG Ball Balmain.
Okay, there you go. Yeah, because he's still only 18, so that makes sense. But look for him possibly to get a debut later in the season. He's one of those types, from what I've heard, that could really push for a really early debut.
There's a picture of him on the website for his age. He has a set of guns on him. Jesus Christ.
He's a monster. He's a big boy.
What is he, a center?
He's a centre. Yeah.
No, maybe there's my answer to the center situation.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he's definitely got some good raps, and he keeps getting mentioned in a lot of circles. So we know we don't like to build these kids up too much, but he's one who is very highly touted. That's for sure. Powerfully built. So SG Ball into the Magpies. So obviously, last year the Harold Matts team below won. So a lot of these guys have pushed up to SG Ball now. So the likes of Talon Silva, up and coming gun hooker, Jordan Miller, same, but in a prop. Kit Lelii, who I'm constantly going to have trouble pronouncing him and his brother Luke's names over the next decade and a half. Hopefully, if they stick around. Kit is quite a good lock from what I hear, and leader of men. So a really good fellow and a pretty good leader by example from what I've heard. They're being joined by Chris Fa'agutu, who was a gun up here in Brisbane, actually went to Wavell Heights, and an Aussie schoolboy. So he comes with pretty good raps. So yeah, quite decent decent players there. As I go through that list, there's more that are starting to stand out to me there now. Taj Cahoon, outside back. You've got Lachlan Galvin, who came up from Harold Matts. He's a lock come 5'8". I don't think he's yet filled out, but similar build to maybe a Dwayhe, just not of the maturity level physically yet. But again, a lot of raps on these guys. So, as we always tend to see with this situation, it's a case of, potential means a whole lot of nothing unless it is actually reached to some degree. But it's good to have a lot of potential in squads than less. And then we have SG Ball Cup side for Balmain. So they've got Falidi there that you mentioned. As I'm going down through this list, it's interesting that Falidi is playing for Balmain. I think generally they tend to stack the Western Suburbs side a little bit more. I don't know the way that they set that up, but it's interesting to see. I don't recognise personally as many names in the Balmain side. Levi Conti, I know there's an Alex Conti in the club as well. Yeah, I'm probably just brushing over a few there. And then we're down in the Harold Matts, and in the Harold Matts, I think about half the squad or so had to move up because of age. And so there's actually looking at it's probably even a little bit more are sticking around. There's an interesting name there to keep an eye out for as well in the Harold Matts, which I'm pretty keen to watch, particularly with those games when they are streamed. And that is a name on Tony Large, or Anthony Onatoni Large. He is a 5'8" half. Probably at that age, he's probably played a little bit of everything, but he is a prospect. Don't forget that name, on a Tony Large. Just starting out in Harold Matts this year, so under 17s. I think he was only 15 last year, so he's probably only turned 16. So he's still a long way away. However, definitely a name to not forget.
There you go. I'll have to try to learn how to say it.
Yeah, I know. Apparently it's Ontini, but it's spelled Onatoni. But anyway, all good. And then there's the Balmain side as well. You can go down to Laurie Daly Cup, the MacArthur West Tigers down to 15s and beyond. So, yeah, look, the pathway stuff that the club's spoken about for a little bit now in terms of getting that organised and having it as a funnel in through the club at large and into the first grade squad, having clear pathways programs is not just a bluff. That's happening, and it's particularly in the next 2 to 3 years, we're going to start to see specklings of it. And I think it's going to be the heartbeat of the club in 5 to 7 years. I think that's going to be our production line, similar to how Penrith just keep rolling them off. And
next in line.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that every now and again, you get a superstar that'll pop up. And as long as we do our very best to lock that particular person down, we'll continue to have this production line of good players. And hopefully it's setting the club up for success now that system is in place. Look, we've got a gigantic catchment the systems are there, the early talent development and identification is there. And so, that was always going to be the thing that needed to turn this club around long term. It's in place. It's just a matter now of playing the waiting game and watching this stuff start to come through. But it's exciting. You mentioned earlier about the squad, the first grade squad. It's exciting to see these names get mentioned in these types of circles. And then you start to see little bits and pieces. You see highlights of Flegg games, or you see highlights of SG ball games. You watch the odd New South Wales Cup game as these players start to come through and get more experience. And I don't know, as a football lover, as a West Tigers lover, that's what I really enjoy doing. So, it's really good to see.
I agree. It's it's frustrating, but like they've been saying, the production line, this and that has been like I've heard this, spiel for the better part of 10 years. And we started seeing that a bit with Brooks, Moses, Sirinen, Simona, Tedesco. But then we just, couldn't keep them. And, we, baffled that, not baffled, but whatever. We stuffed it up.
The wheels fell off.
Yeah. The wheels fell off the bus. There's some
and that all started in motion when Sheens was sacked at the end of 2012. So he was a big proponent of bringing that wave through. They didn't arrive until 2014, 15, 16. But he had played a gigantic role in putting those systems in place prior, him and his staff. So they were sort of the cherry on top of what he had put in place in those earlier years to bring those guys through. And by the time they rocked up, he was 2 or 3 years gone. So, having been back in the game at our club for about 18 months now, he's wasted no time clearly on making sure this stuff is back up and rolling again for sure. And credit to Michael Maguire. He started some of these bits and pieces prior to that as well. So someone had to come in and do the hard yards. And we are currently the Wooden Spoon Club. So by no means are we anywhere yet, but at least we can start to see, I guess, the seedlings that are being laid and hopefully grows into a forest of trophies, not wooden spoons.
Lots of trophies.
Very good, mate. Well, I think that we're probably getting to a little bit of an organic close for episode 2 for this week for the preseason. By the time next week rolls around, my friend, we're going to be at the 24th of January. You know what that means?
Nope.
Well, it means it's one day before the 25th of January.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, not much else. But it means we're another week closer to our first trial game, and the excitement, the palpation around that is poignant. I can feel it. So, it's a nice time of year. I think we've got a lull. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we've got another 2-3 week lull until we start to see these sides take place and we start to be able to see a little bit more footage, and then we get that first trial game, we get all excited, and then we can start to really sort of settle ourselves into the season proper, and cricket starts tapering off, and look, it's an exciting time of year for sure.
Bloody oath. I don't know what to do around Christmas. No footy. Just last year was a bit different. We had the World Cup, so I had a bit of a taste of footy up until but get me back in the NRL.
Yeah, I think we've had our time off.
Yep.
I'm lucky. I'm a cricket fan, so I do love cricket. I know you watch a little bit, but you're not the biggest fan, so it's a bit hard for you. You get a genuine footy time out. So
I've got a little bit of a off-season passion in the NFL, but that's coming down to a wind down as well. So
yeah, absolutely, an exciting wind down nonetheless. Look, mate, we're going to leave it there. But as we said last week, if you haven't yet subscribed to the YouTube channel, please hop on and do so, even if you're listening on Spotify. You get the privilege of looking at our horrible heads each and every week, but we promise to continue to do our makeup as best we can, do our hair, all that sort of stuff. We're wearing the beautiful Tiger Town merch polos. So, if you're able to do that, that'd be wonderful. If you haven't hopped on the Facebook page yet, do that as well. Letting you know whenever our episodes drop. We're making sure that we're keeping people apprised of not only regular news, theories, discussions, and that sort of stuff as well, but just a few whispers, but that the boys try to hear around the traps, or the sorts of things that they that we come across. So great place to be. The Facebook page, hop on it, Tiger Town Podcast. That's where you can find us. You can interact with us. You can write comments, that sort of stuff as well. Ask a few questions. We can talk about it on the show. And all that sort of stuff is really helpful. The engagement is what we want to see. So, yeah, continue to do all those sorts of things. Follow us on our socials and everything else as well. Thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in. Jesus, good to be back, mate.
Oh, talking about the Tigers, I think we could go to midnight, but it's late and I need my beauty sleep.
Absolutely, we both do, as everybody can clearly see. Too much is never enough for us boys. But on that note, I'm going to say good evening. Thank you for listening again. We'll see you next week. And as always, go the Tigers.
The Tigers.